There comes a moment in every wounded soul's life when silence screams louder than words. You sit there, numb and hollow, staring at the shattered remains of what you once thought was loyalty. They smiled in your face while feeding on your kindness like parasites. They drained your hope, your trust, your time. And they did it without flinching, without guilt, without ever looking back. You gave. Not because you were weak, but because you believed in goodness. You sacrificed for them, stood by them, even in storms where you yourself were drowning. And in return, they treated your heart like something disposable, something to use, something to exploit. Do you remember how they turned cold the moment you needed them? How they vanished when it was your turn to be held up? How they blamed you for the very pain they caused? The worst betrayal is not from enemies, it's from those you once prayed for, from those who knew your wounds and chose to press harder. That's not ignorance, that's cruelty. And they did it all with ease, without hesitation, as if your suffering was insignificant, as if your love had no value, as if your collapse was a victory to them. Now you're left holding the silence, the grief, the echo of your own voice in a room where no one stayed. You walk among people, smiling on the outside but broken within. You question your worth, your instincts, your goodness. You ask, how could they? And the more you ask, the less sense it makes. Because betrayal rarely makes sense to those who live with integrity. But what if this pain was never meant to make sense? What if the injustice you suffered isn't yours to fix, but life's? What if every tear you shed, every sleepless night, every silent scream was not a sign of your weakness, but a seed planted in the soil of divine justice? Let's pause and think. Can life be so unjust that those who destroy others walk free forever? Can someone rip the soul out of another and never taste the weight of consequence? The truth is, life has a rhythm, a brutal, precise rhythm. And when you disrupt its harmony by harming the innocent, life responds. Not immediately, not with fire and thunder, but slowly, quietly, inevitably. They took from you without guilt. That's a fact. They saw you breaking and didn't blink. They watched your world collapse and turned away, but life sees and life waits. And when it strikes, it does so with astonishing precision, stripping away layer after layer of the false security they once stood on. Some call it karma, others call it justice, but whatever name you give it, know this. You are not crazy for expecting life to balance the scale. You are not bitter for wanting those who crushed your spirit to taste the emptiness they left in you. You are not wrong for wanting to see the wheel turn, and it will turn. Not because you wished for their downfall, but because life does not reward cruelty forever. Sooner or later, the weight of what they did comes knocking, and when it does, it takes everything. Now, let's walk this path together. Let us unfold the signs that what they did to you is being returned to them by life itself. Let us look at how the pain they caused is echoing back at them, even if you can't yet see it. Kindness is one of the most misunderstood virtues in this world. It is often mistaken for weakness by those who operate with selfish intent. You offered your kindness not because you lacked strength, but because you had it in abundance. You were the one who listened when they needed to talk, the one who stayed when everyone else left, the one who gave when they had nothing to offer in return. And they took that kindness, spat on it, and wore their mockery like a badge of honor. They laughed behind your back at how soft you were. They whispered to others that you were too nice, too emotional, too easy. And yet every time they were in need, they came running to you. Because even though they mocked you in public, they fed off your compassion in private. You were their safe place when their own world turned cold, and they had the audacity to ridicule the very warmth that kept them alive. But people like that don't understand the currency of the soul. They don't realize that kindness is not infinite when it's taken for granted. It's sacred, and once it's violated, it rarely returns. Now look at them. Not through vengeance, but through clarity. Look at the emptiness in their life, the way people avoid them now, the way the warmth they once basked in has vanished. They don't have real friends anymore, only acquaintances who mimic what you gave but without the heart. The silence they once thought was golden is now suffocating. Their conversations are shallow, their relationships strained, and no matter how many people surround them, they are alone, deeply, unshakably alone. This is the cost of mocking kindness. Not because you curse them, but because life always echoes what we throw into the world. They mocked love. Now they are unloved. They ridiculed loyalty. Now they are disposable. They laughed at your softness. Now the world has turned cold on them. And no matter how hard they try to fake their contentment, there is a hollow in them that grows louder with every passing day. That's what happens when you hurt someone who only wanted to help. Life eventually takes away every echo of comfort until they are left to sit with themselves and the shame of what they did to you. There's a particular kind of cruelty in lying to someone who trusted you. When you opened your heart, they used it as an opportunity not to protect you, but to manipulate the narrative. They twisted words, hid intentions, and rewrote entire versions of events to protect their image while assassinating your character. And what made it worse was their lack of remorse. They didn't even flinch. They justified their betrayal as necessary, as if truth was something disposable in the face of their convenience. You spent nights questioning your sanity because of those lies. You second-guessed your own reality. You wondered if maybe you were too sensitive, too reactive. But deep down, you knew the truth. You knew that something was off. You just couldn't understand why someone would hurt you like that. For sport, for power, or for attention. They told others stories that painted them as the victim and you as the villain, while you remained quiet, choosing dignity over drama. And in doing so, you bore the weight of falsehood in silence. But lies are fragile things. They require constant maintenance, endless defense, and an army of new lies to keep the illusion alive. And now, the house of cards they built is trembling. The same stories they used to control perception are beginning to crack. People are starting to see inconsistencies. Some are questioning them. Others are stepping back. The trust they once manipulated is evaporating, and they are being exposed, not by you, but by time and truth. This is the price of deception. Not in loud explosions, but in subtle crumblings. Their image is beginning to decay. Their reputation, once shielded by your silence, is now rotting under the weight of their own falsehoods. Every lie they told has planted a seed of doubt in the minds of those they sought to impress. And now they live in fear, not of being caught, but of being forgotten. Because once the truth catches up, there's no hiding, no saving, no pretending. The very truth they tried to bury is rising like a tide, and as it does, it washes away their illusions one by one, until all that's left is the naked truth, and the emptiness that comes when you've built your life on shadows. There's a particular kind of pain that doesn't come from words or actions, but from inaction, from the silence of those who should have stood by you, but didn't. They saw you breaking, they saw the cracks forming in your life, the weight you were carrying, the storm you were barely surviving, and instead of reaching out a hand, they folded their arms, they turned away, they pretended they didn't see. You were crying inside, and they laughed with others. You needed comfort, and they offered criticism. You longed for someone to say, "I'm here," and they vanished into the crowd like you never existed. That kind of abandonment is hard to forget, not because you're bitter, but because it cuts so deep into the soul that even time struggles to heal it. You weren't asking for everything, you were just asking for presence, for loyalty, for care. But what they gave you is distance, cold, calculated distance. And now, in a strange twist of life's balance, they are feeling the very thing they once watched you endure. Except now they have no audience, no safety net, no one who genuinely cares, because people can only pretend for so long before the truth shows. And the truth is, they don't have what they threw away. They're starting to realize that fake connections can't replace authentic ones, that popularity doesn't cure loneliness, that being surrounded by people who don't know your soul is far worse than being alone. And now, when the night gets heavy and their heart begins to crumble, they have no one left to call, no one who will sit through the storm the way you once did for them. This is the justice of life, not in revenge, but in repetition. Life lets them taste the same emptiness they served you, and as they sit in their own silence, crying into pillows that once held your tears, they begin to understand. Not because someone told them, but because now they are living it. The pain they ignored is now their own. The suffering they dismissed is now echoing in their own soul. And unlike you, they won't have someone like you beside them, because that kind of loyalty doesn't come twice. Some people don't come into your life to love you, they come to use you, to take what they can, while giving as little as possible. You gave your time, your resources, your energy, you showed up for them when no one else did, you believed in their potential, you lifted them higher even while your own feet were trembling, and what did they give you in return? Entitlement, disrespect, silence when you needed gratitude, distance when you needed support. They never said thank you, not really. They acted like you owed them, like your help was a given, not a gift. And they drained you without a second thought, emotionally, mentally, sometimes even financially. They were never really there for you, but they had no shame asking you to be there for them. And every time they succeeded, they looked back at you with arrogance, not acknowledgement. But here's the thing about ungrateful hearts. Nothing they hold ever stays. Life has a way of stripping away everything built on exploitation. The jobs they once bragged about are no longer secure. The relationships they flaunted are unraveling. The peace they pretended to have is now crumbling. And the worst part? They don't understand why. Because in their mind they still believe they deserve more. But life doesn't reward those who climb on the backs of others. It exposes them. And slowly, the ground beneath them starts to fall apart. What they once clung to, status, validation, material things, begins to feel empty. The things that once made them feel powerful no longer bring comfort, because those things were never built on love. They were built on what they stole from you. You were the foundation they stood on, and now that foundation is gone. And no matter how much they chase, they can't seem to regain what they've lost. Because gratitude is not a formality, it's a spiritual force. And when it's missing, blessings don't stay. They used you without thanks, and now life is returning the favor. Slowly, surely, ruthlessly. There's a unique kind of cruelty in being destroyed in front of others, when the people you trusted not only betray you, but do so in a way that's visible, loud, and humiliating. They didn't just hurt you in private. They paraded your pain like a trophy. They whispered lies behind your back and watched as others turned against you. They made sure the world questioned your character while they protected their own. They didn't care that their words cut deeper in public. They didn't hesitate to speak of you in distorted ways, to paint you as unstable, emotional, untrustworthy. You weren't just heartbroken, you were shamed. You carried that weight in silence, wondering how people could believe them, wondering why no one asked for your side. You felt like your reputation was stolen, not by your actions, but by theirs. And still you held your tongue. You didn't retaliate. You could have, but you didn't. Because deep down, you believed in justice. Not the kind that comes through vengeance, but the kind that comes through truth eventually surfacing. And now, that time is here. Because what they tried so hard to hide, what they buried beneath charm, manipulation, and social masks, is starting to crack. Their secrets are no longer safe. The lies they told about you are beginning to look suspicious. People are starting to notice that the stories don't line up. Some are beginning to speak. Others are beginning to watch with new eyes. Life has a brutal honesty. it doesn't allow falsehood to live forever. Eventually, the same public platform they use to break you becomes the stage where their own shame unfolds. The very people they fooled begin to turn away. Whispers start to form, but this time they're not about you, they're about them. Their past is catching up. The things they thought they buried are now screaming from beneath the surface. The things they said in secret are being repeated by mouths they never thought would speak. And as their image begins to fade, their fear begins to rise. You once sat in silence, crumbling under the weight of public disgrace. Now they are sitting in silence, watching their own name lose value, watching the illusion fade, watching the truth unfold. And it's not revenge, it's reality. It's the rhythm of life restoring balance. Loyalty isn't a word, it's a way of living. It's sacrificing your own comfort to stand beside someone else. It's choosing to protect them, defend them, believe in them, sometimes more than they deserve. And you did that. You stayed when it hurt to stay. You fought for them, even when they gave you reasons to walk away. You excused their behavior, forgave their mistakes, overlooked their flaws, because that's what loyal people do. But they didn't return the favor. They saw your loyalty as a guarantee, as something they didn't have to earn or value, and so they used it, pushed its limits, tested how far you would go, how much you would take, and when you had nothing left to give, they left like you were nothing more than a phase. No thank you, no recognition, just absence. And now they're learning what loyalty actually means by watching it disappear from their own lives. They are beginning to attract people like themselves, users, manipulators, people who pretend to care but are always calculating, people who only stay when it's easy, people who lie, cheat, and vanish the moment loyalty is needed. They're starting to realize that true loyalty is rare, and what they had in you, that was priceless, irreplaceable. And now that it's gone, they feel the instability, the uncertainty, the fear, because no one is holding them up now. No one is staying through the chaos. No one is sacrificing anything for them. They're surrounded by people, yet feel unsafe. Surrounded by conversations, yet feel unseen. They're finally tasting the pain of disloyalty, and it's bitter, it's confusing, it's cruel. And what they once took for granted now haunts them. Your absence isn't just noticed, it's felt. It echoes in their disappointments. It shadows their failures. It whispers in their moments of regret. Because the world they built by stepping over your loyalty is now collapsing, brick by brick, under the weight of their own betrayal. There's a sacred kind of pain that lives in the tears no one sees. The kind you cried alone in the dark, with your hands over your mouth so no one would hear you. You broke in silence. You collapsed in private, not because you were weak, but because you didn't want to burden anyone. You didn't want your pain to spill into the lives of others the way theirs spilled into yours. You carried it all quietly, humbly, and alone. And they knew what they were doing. They saw the sadness in your eyes. They felt the shift in your energy. They recognized the distance you started creating, not because you wanted to, but because you had to protect what little was left of you. But they didn't stop. They didn't soften. They didn't pause to ask if you were okay, because your pain was never their concern. Your tears never mattered to them. Not really. They moved on like nothing happened, laughing, posting, thriving, while you were drowning in memories and confusion. And worst of all, they felt nothing. No guilt, no remorse, no shame. It was as if your suffering was invisible, irrelevant. And that's the kind of betrayal that cuts the deepest. When someone knows they've hurt you and chooses not to care. But the thing about unchecked cruelty is that it always circles back. Life doesn't ignore pain, especially not the pain of someone who gave without limits, loved without condition, and broke without justice. And now, without warning, life is knocking on their door with a weight they never expected to carry. They're starting to experience what they once dismissed in you: confusion, heartbreak, betrayal. The very emotions they made you sit in are now building walls around their own heart. And this time, no one is coming to rescue them. No one is holding them together. No one is wiping their tears. Because life is a mirror, and when you cause pain without conscience, that mirror eventually reflects everything back, multiplied. Now they are the ones crying themselves to sleep. Now they are the ones walking through their days pretending to be fine. Now they are the ones questioning why everything is falling apart, why nothing feels stable, why people are leaving, why peace feels so far away. They didn't weep for you, but life has given them 1,000 reasons to weep now. And maybe, just maybe, in the middle of their sleepless nights and restless regrets, they'll remember the tears you cried, the ones they ignored, the ones they caused, the ones that meant something. Because pain has a way of teaching lessons that pride refuses to hear. And now, whether they speak it out loud or not, they're learning that every tear you shed was never forgotten by life. Not one. They thought you were forgettable, replaceable, as if everything you poured into them, the effort, the energy, the faith, was meaningless. They walked away like you were just another chapter, not realizing you were the one who held the pen. They told themselves a story where they were the hero and you were just a temporary character meant to serve a purpose and then fade into the background, and in their arrogance, they assumed you'd be forgotten. That time would erase you. That life would go on for them uninterrupted while you would remain frozen in the aftermath of what they did. But here's what they never expected, that their memory of you would begin to haunt them, not like a ghost, but like a truth they can't outrun. At first it was easy for them. The rush of freedom, the illusion of control. They convinced themselves that they'd made the right decision, that leaving you behind after all the moments, all the sacrifices, all the silent acts of love was just another move forward. They surrounded themselves with noise, distractions, new people. They filled their days with shallow smiles and temporary connections, just enough to make them forget, or at least pretend to. But life has a way of circling back, not with fury, but with clarity. And clarity doesn't come in loud moments. It arrives in the quiet, in the gaps between the conversations, in the empty spaces of the heart where something used to live. That's where you return to them. In the middle of the night, when the world is asleep and their thoughts are wide awake, that's when your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. Because you weren't just a person in their life, you were a light, a constant, a mirror that reflected their better self, even when they didn't deserve it. And now they're beginning to feel the weight of what they threw away, not in dramatic scenes, but in small aching realizations, when they see someone who shows even a fraction of your grace and it reminds them of what they lost. When they need a voice that understands them without words and yours is gone. When they go through something heavy and realize there's no one left who would hold them the way you did, even when you were hurting too. They start to notice the difference, the way others only give when it benefits them, the way conversations feel empty, the way attention feels fleeting. They start comparing, but nothing measures up. Because what they once had in you wasn't ordinary, it wasn't transactional, it wasn't fake. You were real, present, loyal. You gave them something most people aren't capable of giving, genuine love without a ledger. And they took it, they used it, and they left it like it had no weight. But love like that doesn't die quietly. It echoes, it lingers, it becomes a standard, and everything else falls short. And now they carry that comparison with them everywhere they go. No matter how far they run, no matter who they meet, no matter how many faces they try to lose themselves in, your memory is there. Not because you want it to be, but because it's earned its place in their conscience. And here's the twist. The further they get from you, the more they begin to understand you. The things they mocked about you start to make sense. The emotions they dismissed now feel familiar. The depth they avoided now feels like a hunger they can't satisfy. They used to call you too intense, too emotional, too much. But now they're surrounded by people who are too little, too surface, too selfish, and slowly they begin to wish they had understood you sooner. But they don't get to rewind. They don't get to come back and pick up where they left off. Because the person you were back then, the one who waited for them, longed for them, forgave them, even when it broke you, that version of you no longer exists. You've changed, you've grown, you've learned that being loyal to the wrong people only teaches you how to be loyal to yourself. And that's what hurts them most. They thought they could leave and return to find you waiting. But instead, life has made you stronger, quieter, wiser, and harder to reach. Now, when they scroll through memories, they're not just reminiscing, they're aching. They realize that they were not the one who walked away victorious. They were the one who lost something sacred and didn't realize it until it was out of reach. And maybe they'll never say it out loud. Maybe their pride won't allow them to admit that they miss you, that they regret how they treated you, that they now see your value in every void they can't fill. But regret doesn't need words to be real. It shows in their eyes, in their habits, in their quiet moments of reflection, in the spaces where joy used to live and now only echoes remain. Because life has taken everything they thought they'd gain and left them with memories of what they carelessly gave up. And you are no longer begging to be seen, no longer hoping to be chosen. You are becoming everything they weren't capable of recognizing. And that, in the end, is the greatest justice of all. Because their punishment isn't your anger, it's your absence. And no matter what they build now, it will always be haunted by what they lost. You never asked for revenge. You never wanted to see anyone destroyed. All you ever wanted was honesty, respect, loyalty, a fair chance to be treated the way you treated others. But what you received in return was pain, betrayal, humiliation, and silence from those who knew they hurt you. And yet you survived. You carried your wounds with grace. You held your head high when it felt impossible. You walked through the fire without setting anyone else ablaze. And for that, you must understand you are not weak. You are not a victim. You are a survivor of someone else's selfishness. And now life has taken the wheel. Because life doesn't forget. It may wait, it may stay quiet, but it never sleeps. It watches the ones who break hearts like it's sport. It observes those who mock loyalty and manipulate love. And eventually, it responds, not with cruelty, but with balance, not with rage, but with justice. Those who once took from you without guilt, your energy, your trust, your peace, they are now facing a life that reflects the truth of who they are. They're learning that blessings don't grow in the soil of betrayal. They're learning that fake masks eventually fall, that the people they used to impress now see through them, that what they once had can't be rebuilt when it was built on the foundation of someone else's pain. And you are rising. You're healing, slowly, quietly, powerfully. You are becoming the version of yourself that no longer begs for understanding from those who chose to misunderstand you. You are learning that not everyone deserves a front row seat to your story, and that those who tried to write you out are now footnotes in a chapter that ends with your restoration. So walk forward, not with bitterness, but with certainty. Let life take everything from them the way they once took everything from you. You don't need to fight. You don't need to prove anything. Life is already doing what you couldn't. And one day, whether by regret, realization, or ruin, they will remember you, not as the person they broke, but as the one who rose after they walked away.